The question here is, which of the following is not an aromatic compound? Not an aromatic compound. Okay. Following options have been given to us, A, B, C and D, and we need to actually find out that which of the particular compound given in the options to us is not an aromatic compound. So there are some characteristics as well as the conditions for a compound to be aromatic in nature. First is that the compound should be cyclic in nature. The second thing which should be satisfied by the compound to be an aromatic compound is that it should be planar in nature. Planar in nature means it should be sp2 hybridized. Every atom present in that particular compound should be sp2 hybridized. The third is conjugation. By conjugation we mean that there should be delocalization of pi electrons taking place in the system. Okay. And the fourth one is it actually should satisfies the Huckel's rule. And what does Huckel's rule states? Huckel rule states that the number of delocalized pi electrons should be of the form 4n plus 2 pi, this, where n actually ranges from 0 to n, that means 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 and so on, the whole number. So over here, if I just look for option number A, this particular compound is cyclic in nature. It is planar in nature because every atom present in this compound is sp2 hybridized. Conjugation is there. How? The one lone pair of electron present on sulfur atom is actually involved in the delocalization of electron. How many electrons are involved in the delocalization process? 4 pi electrons plus 2 electrons of the lone pair. So in total, 6 electrons. Yes, it do follows the Huckel rule. See, it's 4n plus 2 equals to 6. Therefore, n becomes equals to 1. Okay, and yeah, the value of n ranges from 0, 1, 2, 3 and so on. So, the value of n came out to be 1 and yeah, option number A is aromatic compound. Option number A is aromatic compound. Talking about option number B now. So, over here, straight away I'll say that I am actually seeing 2 carbon atoms which are sp3 hybridized. And we want that every atom present in the compound should be sp2 hybridized in order to satisfy the planarity condition. Basically, yeah, this is no doubt. This is cyclic in nature, but this is not planar. Even the conjugation is also not taking place. Conjugation, we mean there should be delocalization of pi electrons. Alternate single and double bond should be there. Over here, you can just see it's not there. Double bond over here, then single bond, and then single bond. So, conjugation not present. Huckel's rule, there are 4 pi electrons involved. And yeah, if 4 pi electrons are there, the value of n, 4n, plus 2 equals to 4. So, the value of n comes out to be half in fraction, which is actually not the case, should be. Therefore, option number B is non-aromatic. Therefore, option number B is non-aromatic. Okay, we'll not say option number B as anti-aromatic. No, we are not going to say option number B as anti-aromatic because anti-aromatic, for a compound to be anti-aromatic, the atoms present should be sp2 hybridized. That means for a compound to be anti-aromatic, it should be cyclic, planar, conjugation should be there. Yeah, it should not follow Huckel's rule. Okay, the number of delocalized electrons should be of the type 4n pi. So over here, since the hybridization of 2 carbon atoms is sp3, so it will be non-aromatic. Neither it will be aromatic, neither it will be anti-aromatic. It will be actually called as non-aromatic. So this option number B is the best suited answer for the question asked to us. Talking about option number C over here. It is tropylium cation, cyclic, planar, conjugated. Which type of conjugation is taking place over here? Positive charge conjugation is taking place. So we'll consider for a while just to make you understand that the positive charge is double bond. So see, it's double bond, single bond, double bond, single bond, then double bond, single bond. Consider this positive charge as double bond and this is then what? Single bond. This is then single bond. Remember this. So option number C is actually aromatic compound. Talking about option number D, it is similar to option number A wherein we have just changed the heteroatoms. So this is oxygen present over here. The lone pair of electron present on the oxygen will be involved in the delocalization of pi electrons. It is cyclic, planar, conjugation is taking place. How many electrons, how many pi electrons, how many delocalized pi electrons are involved? It's actually total of 6. So yes, I'll say it follows Huckel's rule. So I'll just mark option number B as the right answer to this question. It is a non-aromatic compound. Option number B is the right answer to this question. The question over here is 1 mole of soda ash. Soda ash means Na2CO3. Okay, it dissolves in water with evolution of 25 kilojoule of heat. 1 mole of soda ash, Na2CO3, it get dissolved in water. Okay, and there is evolution of heat. That means delta H of solution, that too for anhydrous salt, that too for anhydrous salt, is equals to minus 25 kilojoule. Okay, fine, because this is anhydrous salt. It's not having now presently the water of crystallization. Talking about the next statement given to us, dissolution of 1 mole of hydrate crystal, hydrate crystals of soda ash, that means Na2CO3 dot XH2O. Okay, in water, dissolution of 1 mole of hydrate crystal in water resulted in the absorption of 67 kilojoule of heat. Now the heat has been absorbed out, not evolved out. So what I mean to say over here is delta H, okay, of solution, that too of hydrated salt, that too of hydrated salt, leads to absorption. That means 67 kilojoule of heat. 67 kilojoules of heat is there. Now, what we need to actually find out is the heat released due to hydration of soda ash. Heat released due to hydration of soda ash. Okay, so let us consider this equation as the first equation and this equation as the second equation. Subtract equation number 2 from equation number 1. Subtract equation 2 from equation 1. What we are going to get is Na2CO3 in water. It gives us Na2CO3 dot XH2O. The heat released due to hydration of soda ash. Okay, so we need to actually find out delta H of hydration. So delta H of hydration will be equals to minus 25. Okay, and minus of 67. It becomes equals to minus 92 kilojoule. This is one method to solve. Now, if I just talk about the direct method of solving this, it will be delta H of solution for anhydrous salt is equals to delta H of hydration plus delta H of hydrated salt, delta H of solution, delta H of solution for hydrated salt. And this particular expression comes from Hess law. Hess law. So straight away you can also mark. This we need to calculate out. So it will be delta H of hydration is equals to delta H of solution for anhydrous salt. It was minus 25 kilojoule and minus of delta H of solution for hydrated salt. Over here energy was absorbed, but if we take into the left hand side, we'll get is as minus 67 kilojoule. So in total it becomes minus 92 kilojoule. Minus 92 kilojoule. Remember this. So delta H of hydration, that means the energy, the heat released due to hydration of soda ash is minus 92 kilojoule. Hence, I will mark option number A as the right answer to this question. Question over here is two closed bulbs of equal volume V. So these are two closed bulbs. These are two closed bulbs of equal volume V containing an ideal gas initially at pressure Pi and temperature T1 are connected through a narrow tube of negligible volume. They are connected through a narrow tube of negligible volume as shown in the figure. Fine, that means this is the narrow tube. of negligible volume as shown in the figure. The temperature of one of the bulb is then raised. That means this particular bulb temperature was raised to T2. The final pressure PF will be what? Okay, the final pressure PF will be what if the temperature of the second bulb has been raised to T2. Now over here, I just want to clear one thing about the number of moles of the gases. See, in the question only they have said one thing, that the system is a closed system, two closed bulbs of equal volume. Now since this particular system is a closed system, I'll say one thing, that total number of gaseous moles of ideal gas or total number of moles of ideal gas will be equal before and after the increase of temperature. Since the system is a closed system, therefore the total number of moles of an ideal gas will be equal before and after the temperature got increased up. Clear? That means one thing is clear, that total number of moles initially is equals to total number of moles in the final state. This is what I want to say. Now, one more thing we know, that number of moles N is equals to PV by RT. PV by RT. Now, what we can do? Just have a look. What I'm going to do is, I just talked about that total number of moles at initial stage is equals to total number of moles at the final stage, which we got after increase in temperature. Now number of moles is equals to PV by RT. So one thing we can write is PIV upon RT1 plus PIV upon RT1, which is equals to, it is PFV upon RT1. The temperature of bulb, this one bulb, is the same as the T1. That's why I wrote T1 only. Plus PFV upon RT2. We need to actually calculate out the final pressure PF. The final pressure PF is actually what? Fine. So, what we can do is, see, volume and R, the universal gas constant, they are actually same. So we'll remove them. So what we get is Pi upon T1. So I can write it as twice of Pi upon T1. So when I just neglect volume and universal gas constant R, since they are same for each and every condition before and after the increase of temperature, so I've just demolished them. So it becomes twice of Pi upon T1, which is equals to PF upon T1 plus PF upon T2. Okay, we need to find out the value of PF. We need to find out the value of PF. So it will be T1 into T2. Okay, so what it becomes? It becomes what? Let's check that out. So it is, it's T2 PF plus T1 PF, which is equals to twice of Pi upon T1. So it becomes twice of Pi multiplied by T1 into T2 divided by T1 within bracket, because I can write this as PF T1 plus T2 upon T1 multiplied by T2. So I took these, I just actually cross multiplied these whole term just to calculate out the value. So it's T1 into T1 plus T2, which is equals to PF, the final pressure. T1 cancels out with T1 and we are left with that the final pressure is equals to twice of Pi within bracket T2 upon T1 plus T2. This is the final pressure which we have got. This is the final pressure which we have got. And this matches with the twice of Pi T2 upon T1 plus T2. So option number A is the best suited answer for this particular question. So yeah, I think the question has been understood to you. And option number A is the right answer to this question. Question over here is, what is the volume of 0.1 molar HCl required to react completely with 1 gram mixture of equimolar amount of Na2CO3 and NaHCO3? I repeat the question again, read it very carefully. What is the volume required of 0.1 molar acid? Okay, required to react completely with 1 gram mixture of equimolar amount. 1 gram mixture of equimolar amount. That means their moles are actually same of Na2CO3 and NaHCO3. Absolutely right? Yes. Okay. So we need to actually talk about the volume required, okay, of 0.1 molar HCl solution to completely react with the equimolar amount of Na2CO3 and NaHCO3. So what should be our approach? First of all, let me actually talk to you in the particular regard is that it is Na2CO3 plus twice of HCl. It will give us, so when sodium carbonate Na2CO3 reacts with HCl, we'll get twice of NaCl plus H2CO3. Clear? And when NaHCO3 it reacts with HCl, we'll get NaCl. We are going to get NaCl plus H2CO3. Absolutely right. Okay, no issues. Fine. Now what I want to actually talk about is the N factor of the both these salts. I want to talk about the N factor for both the salts, Na2CO3 as well as NaHCO3, because actually it will be helping us out in solving the question further. So N factor of any salt is equal to the total charges present on cation and anion. Clear? So when this get dissociated, when this Na2CO3 gets dissociated, we are going to get as twice of Na positive plus CO3 2 negative. And when NaHCO3 is going to get dissociated, we are going to get as Na positive plus HCO3 negative. I just talked about that the N factor of the salt is what? N factor of the salt is the total number of charges present on cation and anion. So, if I talk about Na2CO3 and I am having 2 Na positive and CO3 2 negative, the charge on cation is plus, but that cation is twice in number, 2 Na positive. So, 2 Na positive means 2 into 1, which is equals to 2. Okay, and for the cation CO3 2 negative, the charge present is 2 and it is only 1 mole. So it will be 2 into 1, which is equals to 2. So what I talked about, the N factor of the salt is the total number of charge present on cation and anion. By this I mean that the N factor of Na2CO3 over here will be equals to 2 only. This is the N factor of Na2CO3. The charges present on cation as well as on anion. Okay. So, if I now talk about the N factor of NaHCO3, I'll just say the charge present on cation is 1 and the charge present on anion as well as, okay, it is also 1. So, the charges present on cation and anion for NaHCO3 is equals to 1. That means the N factor will also be equals to 1. Okay, the total number of charges present on cation and anion is the N factor for the salt. Therefore, if I talk about the N factor for NaHCO3, for this particular case, it will be equals to 1. Clear? This we have actually calculated out. Now, over here, one more thing I want to say that equivalent of Na2CO3 plus equivalent of NaHCO3 is equals to equivalent is equals to what? Can you tell me this particular thing over here. Equivalent of Na2CO3 is equals to equivalent of NaHCO3, which will be in turn equals to NV of HCl. Normality into volume of HCl. Okay. So over here we have been given with 0.1 molar HCl. 0.1 molar HCl. The N factor for HCl. N factor for HCl is equals to 1, because the charge present on cation and anion is 1 only. +1 and -1. So it is over here given to us as molarity, 0.1 molar. Normality is equals to molarity into N factor. So molarity is 0.1 multiplied by 1. Therefore the normality becomes 0.1 normal. This is our normality. Clear? Fine. So it's normality into volume of HCl, and the volume we need to calculate out. Now talking about equivalent of Na2CO3. Let us consider one thing, that in mixture, X gram of Na2CO3 is present. X gram of Na2CO3 is present, and 1 minus X gram of NaHCO3 is present. Clear? Now what will be equivalent of Na2CO3? The molar mass, one more thing, molar mass of Na2CO3 is equals to 106 grams per mole, and the molar mass of NaHCO3 is equals to 86 gram per mole. Clear? So if I want to calculate out the equivalent of Na2CO3, it will be the given weight divided by equivalent weight. And what is equivalent weight? Equivalent weight is equals to molar mass upon N factor. That's why I calculated out the N factor for Na2CO3 and NaHCO3. So it will be X upon 106 divided by the N factor of Na2CO3. That means it will go into numerator, so multiplied by 2. Plus 1 minus X divided by 86 multiplied by 1. The N factor for NaHCO3, it is equals to 0.1 into V. So this is the expression we have got. Okay. And this will actually help us out in calculating out the volume required of HCl. Now, in the question only they have said that there are equimolar amount of Na2CO3 and NaHCO3. That means the moles of Na2CO3 and NaHCO3, they both are equal, which means X upon 106 is equals to 1 minus X upon 86. These are the number of moles of Na2CO3 as well as NaHCO3. So from here we will calculate out the value of X. So it is 86X equals to 106 minus 106x. So 106 is equals to 86 plus 106x. So x becomes equals to 106 divided by, so 6 and 6 are 12, and it's 6, wait a minute. It is 106, so 6 and 6 are 12, 2, 1 carrying, fine, 1 and 8, 9, and it's 192. It is 192. So when you will calculate this particular thing out, you will get the answer as 0.552. So the value of x comes out to be 0.552. This is a simple division thing you need to do, and you will get your answer. Apply the approximation and get the result. You can do one thing, make 106 as 110 and 192 as 190. And you'll get the answer. Fine. So substitute the value of x in this expression and get the result for the volume of HCl. Okay. So over here what I'm going to do is, it is 0.552. Okay. It is 0, because I'm just substituting the value of x, 0.552 divided by 106 multiplied by 2 plus 1 minus 0.552 divided by 86. Okay. It is equals to 0.1 multiplied by V volume. So when you will calculate this particular thing out, when you will actually calculate this expression and when you will calculate this expression, you will get your results as 0.0104 plus 0.0052 equals to 0.1 into V. This is the result you are going to get. Okay, simple multiplication and division, apply approximation, go for it. Okay, remember this, it is 0.552. Okay, so you will get the answer as, it will be 0.0156 equals to 0.1 multiplied by V volume. So the volume required for HCl is equals to 150. It will be 0.156 liters. So if we convert into milliliter, so it will be 156 milliliter. Multiply it by 1000 and you will get your answer as 156 milliliter. So the volume required, or the volume of 0.1 molar HCl required to react completely with 1 gram mixture of equimolar amount of Na2CO3 and NaHCO3, it will be 156 ml. Hence option number C is the best suited answer for this question. So the question over here is 20 ml of 0.1 molar H2SO4 solution is added to 30 ml of 0.2 molar NH4OH solution. The pH of the resultant mixture is what? pKb of NH4OH. Okay, which is equals to 4.7 and log 2 is equals to 0.3010. So pKb is measure of basicity basically. Fine. So pKb value for the base has been given to us, the weak base, which is 4.7. What we have to calculate the pH of the resultant mixture. What is actually happening? That H2SO4 and NH4OH, there is the reaction between these two. So we are having weak base and strong acid. Weak base and strong acid. Fine. That means we are going to get basic buffer solution. What do you mean by basic buffer? Basic buffer solution, it is actually the combination of weak base and its salt with strong acid. That means weak base and the salt of strong acid and its salt with strong acid basically. So if I just talk about H2SO4, H2SO4, it will completely dissociate it into twice of H positive and SO4 2 negative. Now the molar concentration of H2SO4 is 0.1. What will be the molar concentration for H positive ion? It will be 2 into 0.1, which is equals to 0.2 molar. So 1 mole of H2SO4, it contains 2 moles of H positive ion. It is clear or not? Over here we require hydrogen ion concentration only. Why? Because over here weak base reacts with acid and we only talk about H positive ion concentration basically. Okay. Moreover, if I just talk about NH4OH, the molar concentration of NH4OH is 0.2 molar. Now, if I talk about the millimoles, why I'm talking about millimoles? Because the volume given to me is in ml. That's why. So, millimoles of NH4OH, it will be equals to 0.2 multiplied by 30, which is equals to 6 millimole. 6 millimoles of NH4OH weak base. And if I talk about millimoles of H positive ion, millimoles of hydrogen ion, H positive ion, it will be equals to the molar concentration 0.2 multiplied by the volume 20. So it is 20 ml and it is 30 ml, remember. That's why we are talking about millimoles. So it will be 4 millimoles of H positive ion. Now there is a reaction between weak base NH4OH and the strong acid, and I am only taking the hydrogen ion part of that strong acid, H positive ion basically. So what we are going to get is the salt NH4 positive plus water. So when a weak base reacts with strong acid, there is formation of what? the salt of strong acid, fine, along with the formation of water. So I've considered only hydrogen ion part, that's why NH4 positive. Otherwise, wait a minute, the reaction would have been NH4OH plus H2SO4. It will give us NH4 twice SO4. This would have been the case. Okay, plus H2O. Balancing you can do. So this is the salt form, ammonium sulfate. That's why. Okay, so I have only considered the hydrogen ion part, nothing else. Fine. Okay, so initially how many millimoles of NH4OH and H positive were there with us? I'm talking about initially, the initial condition. It was 6 millimoles and it were actually 4 millimoles initially, talking about the millimoles. So for weak base it was 6 millimoles and for strong acid it was 4 millimoles. Salt and water formed were 0 millimoles. Okay. So finally, when the reaction got completed, whole of the acid would have been consumed. Now the millimoles left for H positive ion will be 0 because whole of the acid has been consumed. The millimoles left for NH4OH will be 6 minus 4 equals to 2 millimoles, and the millimoles formed for the salt over here, NH4 positive or NH4 twice SO4, ammonium sulfate, it will be how many millimoles? The millimoles consumed of acid, so it will be 4 only. Okay, 4 millimoles of H positive ion were totally consumed, okay, by 6 millimoles of NH4OH. Okay, which means that 2 millimoles of NH4OH is left in the solution and 4 millimoles of NH4 positive, the salt has been formed in the solution. Okay, this is what I want to convey you. No issues. So if I just talk about the concentration part, what is the concentration of salt? Okay, so if I just talk about the concentration of the salt, it will be how many millimoles of the salt has been found? 4 divided by total volume, it's actually 50 ml. Talking about the concentration of the weak base, it will be equals to 2 upon 50. Okay, so it is a basic buffer solution. So we'll write POH is equals to pKb plus log of concentration of the salt to the concentration of the base. Clear? Okay, substitute the value. The value of pKb has been given to us, which is 4.7. It's 4.7 plus log of concentration of NH4 positive. It's 4 by 50. Concentration of NH4OH, it's 2 by 50. 50 and 50 cancels out with each other. We are left with 4 divided by 2. So it is equals to 4.7 plus log 2. The value of log 2 is given in the question, which is 0.3010. So just we'll take only till 2 decimal point. It will become 5. So the value of POH is equals to 5. But we also know that pH plus POH is equals to 14. And the value of pH then comes out to be 14 minus 5 is equals to 9. So the pH of the resultant mixture is 9. pH of the resultant mixture is actually 9. Hence option number B is the right answer to this question.